Futureproof is sponsored by Carrot Events, showcasing your company values with high-impact, bespoke events. Hello and welcome to Futureproof. You're watching Sarah Hopwood as I continue these business television programs talking about future-proofing, looking at what the future looks like, and sometimes bringing in guests to share their little gems of knowledge. And also I run some programs on my own where I share some things that have inspired me or some learning that I hope is helpful to you. This is for business owners, it's for employees and indeed students. My subject is emotional intelligence. I've written on the subject and indeed spoken in quite big arenas on the subject, and also I like to thread emotional intelligence through the debates that I have here in this studio, and today is no exception. I want to look at some people who have inspired me. So I've got some books on my table, and I'm going to start with Howard Gardner because he really has helped me through his writings, and I'm going to start with where he first helped me, share a couple of books, and then I'm actually going to read his own foreword in his book called 5 Minds for the Future. Howard Gardner really did start the beginning, if you like, of my own personal development. The story started with him, and personal development comes from two places: either proactively, that you actually decide you want to develop yourself and your learning, or it comes through crisis. And for me, my learning actually started at a point of crisis. If any of you know anything about me, watched any of my programs, you'll know that I've had significant family loss to cancer, and you combine that with then the other trials of life that can come your way, and it completely floored me, and I felt I had no other place to go. Please know straight away, I want to be respectful. There are many of you dealing with much more than that, or for those of you who haven't had to deal with such great forces, if you like, then I encourage you to just search or continue your journey on personal development to enhance your own thinking. And it's not always about me. It's not, the learning isn't me. I think it's the more that we can understand ourselves, it empowers us to then understand other people. But in the business world, I would say more importantly, by understanding yourself and by understanding other people, you are then able to better understand what is going on around you. And that's incredibly important, I think, in the boardroom and indeed running teams, the recruitment process, to be able to intuitively and with foundation, if you like, read and understand what you're seeing before you, because all of us just basically portray what we want the world to see. We're all acting, if you like, we're all running our own plays, and the deeper sense of emotionally intelligent thinking that you have, the better able, I believe, that we are to understand what it is that we are seeing. We are able to pick up levels of trust very quickly. I also talk about neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, and mindfulness, and there are other things that are able to help you test whether what somebody is sharing with you is an objective, balanced view, or whether it's very much a skewed view coming from a skewed place of thinking, very often through their own journeys. We're not here to damn people, but in the business world, we all know it is incredibly expensive if you recruit the wrong person, and that's why people can sometimes look at saving costs in the recruitment process. But my gosh, when you get it wrong, it costs you much more than anything. It doesn't even come near any recruitment costs. And in the past, we've been employed where people have paid us thousands to sit on a board, to assess somebody, to put them through tests, to evaluate them, to look at their partners, particularly if it's a place of influence where that person's going to be speaking and on a larger platform. We want to know the wholeness about them, not just them. And you can really grill someone, but the more you grill them, the more you test them, the more you give them a chance, if you like, to hang themselves or prove themselves, you are then future-proofing your business. So it's incredibly powerful, and Howard Gardner can help us do that. So the beginning of my journey, the first thing I knew about Howard Gardner was that he was a prolific writer on multiple intelligences, and at the time it was too big a subject for me to comprehend. So I started at a place around his 8 intelligences, and I know this is used in education, particularly for minority areas in education. It is so inspiring for kids to know that they are very bright, even if they're not good at maths or English or whatever else it might be. And this is where I think I realised that I did have some strengths which could help me get back up again and get into a more balanced place of thinking and being, and indeed a greater level of consciousness, I think, and also far less stress. But never ever think we don't want stress. We always do want stress as human beings, but obviously it has to be manageable stress. And a lot of that, I know I'm going off subject a bit, but it's also very much our stress levels are linked to our belief systems about stress too. If you believe stress is bad for you, then you won't cope half as well as somebody who believes that stress is good for them. They'll thrive on it. But that will come in another one of my single sessions. So the 8 intelligences, maths and linguistic. Now I'm married to a chartered accountant, so he thinks in lines and columns. Very often if there's trouble in a business, finance very often is linked in there somewhere. And it's not because they're bad people or anything else, it's they feel huge responsibility, but also they communicate in very different ways to generally other people within the business. So we just need to understand how they are thinking and behaving. Linguistic people, I always say these are people who can spot a spelling mistake before opening an email. These will, they're very good at languages, they're very good at articulating, at writing, and sort of sentence formation and paragraph structures come reasonably easy to them. They have a great understanding of it. Interpersonal, these are people who have a great understanding of an empathy and understanding of other people. They're quite sociable. Some would argue a lot of people with high interpersonal intelligence might be extroverts, though please remember history shows that the most effective leaders in history, most of them were introverts, not extroverts. So I think that's a big one that we should really listen to. The loudest in the room is not always the best. So and then intrapersonal, these are people who understand themselves, who can actually say, I'm really sorry, and confident to say, I'm sorry I got that wrong, and not feel threatened or flawed by it. They're so self-knowing and confident in themselves, they don't worry about vulnerability as much as somebody who perhaps lacks some of that intelligence. Kinesthetic, any sports pitch, whether that is squash to a game of football or what have you, these people demonstrate high intelligence as they play team games or even solo games like squash, anticipating, projecting, and thinking intelligently about what to do next ahead of doing it. So it's that kind of forecasting thought as well. Quite adept too with their hands and their movements. So that's and aesthetics. These are people musical and cultural, and my kids are very musical, and aesthetic intelligence, I've talked about it before. Never think that making your business look pretty is a waste of money. People with high aesthetic intelligence need to see that is what will draw them into the business. Spiritual, we are all spiritual human beings. Remember, we play out what we want the world to see. Maybe deal with some of your baggage page, unpack some of that and allow yourself to be vulnerable, because it's in that vulnerability that you will be strong. And the last one is moral. You know, how much pushing on your moral bar do you take before you break your own moral code? And often if someone's acting in anger, sometimes it's not because they're cross with you at all. They're cross with themselves because they have broken their own moral code. So take care. Stay with me for the next half. EQ, emotional quotient, is better known as emotional intelligence. It is a tangible tool that can sit alongside your services or your product, and it can be taught. Leaders with high EQ have less stress, they're more effective, and they earn more money. There's a great saying, just because we have pains, it does not give us permission to be a pain. I believe that teaching emotional intelligence has a direct impact on your sense of success and your net profits. EQ will empower you and your workforce to drive the change that you want. Change brings transition. EQ can help unpack what's holding you back and speed up that period of transition.